Welcome to the World of Horror podcast with Mom and Mac. This is the podcast where we share our love of international horror. Everyone has their fears, but we are not afraid of subtitles. Before we get into it, fair warning, these discussions will include spoilers and language which may not be suitable for all listeners. Let's move on to our first segment, Mom and Mac Chat.
Hi, Mac. How's it going?
Hi, Mom. It's going okay. I'm, as they say, in between. They don't say this, but I'll say it. I'm in between medications right now, so I'm a bit like I'm here. You know, I'm not. I feel like if I was in like a cave for like a week, that would do me good. Just don't talk to anybody for like not even in an angry way, just in like a, I don't even know. How are you?
Yeah, I know I can actually relate to that a lot. And that's so funny because I don't even like really talk to that many people, but like, I don't know what you're like, but as soon as I get up, I'm like listening to a podcast and then, I don't know, I have constant input.
Yeah, I do that too.
So, and I know you don't have this, but I have been starting to, this is going to sound really cheesy. I don't care. Somebody suggested to me that the first thing in the morning, just to say, good morning, God. And it's just a way to kind of get you in the right mindset, you know, instead of like, I don't know, thinking about money or thinking about somebody else or my weight or just, you know, just think about God. So I did that this morning. So usually it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, oh, hey, good morning. But by that time I've already like listened to a couple of podcasts and like, I don't know, done a bunch of work on the computer, whatever. So this morning I did that. And then I said, all right, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to eat today? And it was, this is going to sound so weird, but I just got a picture and I got a picture of 3 eggs, the salad, and my ready-made meal. And that's kind of my plan every day. And so I was like, okay. Because that's my plan, but I only stick to the plan. And case in point, yesterday I got takeout. So then I also had a picture of like myself throwing what was left into the garbage. So because somebody pointed out to me, I got Chinese one time and sugar is a problem for me. And this person said, oh, there's probably sugar in that Chinese food. And now I'm thinking, oh, there's probably lots of sugar in all kinds of takeout food. Like, why wouldn't there be? They're trying to make it addictive.
Tasty.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, that's true. So it's just best for me to just make my food at home and everything. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate to wanting to just sort of be all by myself and not have, I've never done this, but I wonder what it'd be like to take like a digital holiday, even for like a day.
I feel like I've been, well, okay, I technically don't ever do this because I'm usually playing like a video game of some sort, but I've really been like not going on social media. And I cannot recommend it enough. Like I had this kind of, Alan and I were watching this YouTube video that was basically talking about this guy who got really popular off of TikTok and Twitch around the end of 2023 for WoHos. If you know, his name's Sketch. I would not have ever known about this because he really big in like the sports world, but seems like a really nice young man. But I just realized like, wow, I haven't been on TikTok in a while. And it's a really weird thing of like, you are missing out on jokes and, you know, pop culture things that such a huge portion of people are interested in. And at the same time, you should not be on it. Like if you are on TikTok right now, you gotta delete the app. It's not good for you. Like we are not meant to scroll and like look at things like that. Like it cannot be good for you. There's no way it is. If you find your community, that's awesome. You're the exception to the rule. Like, and I wish you could find something in real life, because that would be way better for you. As I'm not even trying to get on a soapbox or anything. I'm just like I'm obviously not where I want to be mental health wise, but I don't think you can get there being on social media in any way.
Wow. Yeah. That is so crazy because I was talking about how to sell my artwork, and basically it's going to involve being on social media a lot, but it's trying to direct people. Basically, the only job will be trying to direct people to my website, which isn't even like up or anything like that. I'm working on the website. But once I have the website in place, I was talking to a friend of mine who it doesn't make, she builds houses. And so she, that's what she does. Like, so she's got clients, and in order to get clients, they have to go to her website, and she has some experience with it. This is what I'm trying to say. And so, yeah, she was just like, I think if you had like a place for people to go, that would be really good. And I'm like, makes just a lot of sense. And so anyway, that's supposed to be, that's a project that I need to work on, but it's going to involve me being on, but I don't have to be on TikTok. And I spend a lot of time more on Instagram. And I can while away a lot of hours and sending reels back and forth to my boyfriend or things like that. And it's like, yeah, but
and this, I'm saying all this, this is purely, this is based off of my own brain. So like, I totally believe that other people can have a healthy relationship with it, but I just realized like, I cannot, like, it just puts too many like bad thoughts into my head, and just like keeps me from finding like peace in my life. But I feel like if you're very like focused, that would be good. As long as if you can, which is tough because the whole point of it, they build it so you won't be focused, and you'll only, just while, like you said, like just keep going forever. So you have to like fight that, because you do have to use social media to get, notoriety on something. And probably if you did like make a TikTok, you could find success even, selling things like a lot of people do on TikTok. But I just feel like it's such a precarious, like, balance.
I think we're kind of saying the same thing, that if you're just going on because you're like bored or lonely, or for some reason like that, where you don't really have you don't have a focused intent in mind, then it can lead you down like some pretty dark paths, because, there's some dark stuff on there, and people are mean sometimes, or just stupid, so that can be unfortunate. But if you do have like something specific that you're trying to do, use it as a tool kind of, then.
Yeah. And you can meet people and all that, made plenty of great friends and like retained friendships, it's like, I just feel like the bad can outweigh the good.
Yeah,
but
I'm with you. I was watching The Hills Have Eyes, and I was thinking, it's so weird that they don't have phones.
Yeah, there was a time, it's like really weird to think about. And obviously society wasn't like, it wasn't like we went from utopia to now where, hellscape. It's obviously not true. And you can find information and representation in things that you never would have found before. All of this is true. I just wish it was the good stuff and not, it has warped our brains. It has made us, especially if you have ADHD, it's just really tough because it's a constant battle with your brain already to have an attention span, to the point that, even I think if phones didn't exist, a lot of people with ADHD would need medication to be like, I need medication to do my work and to, be focused on things and to do chores. But my attention span has already been eroded in such a way, from my phone. Like, and if you really start being mindful of it, you realize like, oh my God, there's so many times that, because I don't know all the scientific terminology or whatever, or the best explanation, but I watched this one therapist on YouTube, Tracy Marks, and she says, that our brains are not supposed to be always on like that. And even if you're mindlessly scrolling, it's not technically mindless, because your brain is being activated in some way. But people just used to like sit and do nothing, and that's good for you.
Yeah.
But anytime I begin to get to that point, my brain's like, better grab the phone, just, it's like opening up the fridge and thinking food will be in there when it's not. It's like, better open this up, and then why? It's not doing anything.
That's a really interesting thought. Yeah. So I don't know, because that's not the way I use Instagram currently. I mean, I usually use it when I'm bored or lonely, mostly, but just to have a reason when you go on, or if you don't have a reason, don't go on. But I just feel like that would be very difficult. But just because it's difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
Yeah. I don't know. I just had a moment the other day where I really was trying to like not, use my phone or look at anything. And then I just spent a bunch of great time like watching the stuff that like Luffy and Hoshi were doing. And I was like, this is 1,000,000 times better than scrolling Reddit. If I'm just sitting in a chair looking at these two like creatures in my house that I have right here, that's such a way better use of my time. Cause I also feel like school and, work has also warped. I mean, I know it's similar in every culture, but like, I feel like American culture has a very specific fucked up way of viewing like productivity. And so then you feel this need to be, and also time is ticking in your life. I feel like a lot of us have this sense of like, oh, I've only got so much time left in my life. I better use my day, because you're working all the time. If it's your time off, you're like, let me do something good with this. But I think something good could just be looking at your cat. Because when I did that, I was just noticed how smart Luffy is and like playing with him, and how like, wow, he's such a cool cat. Like, it's so cool I have this cat. Also, he's oh wait, that's my backpack. Wait, no, it's part backpack, part Luffy. There he is.
Mac has a black cat, so sometimes it blends into the other things.
He does. He's so cute.
Well, they say that's one of the really great advantages of having a pet, is that they keep you in the present moment.
Yeah. Because they'll, pull you away from something. And I remember when I was using TikTok all the time, my first feeling would be annoyance of like, I'm looking at this right now. What the fuck do you want, animal? And now that I don't have it, it's more like, oh, hello. Like, what do you want? I think it makes me an angrier person, a more ticked off person, if my attention span is not good.
Yeah. And it says I'm a complete addict. So like, don't get me wrong. Like it's a problem for me. Like my phone is a problem for me. And even if it's not like social media, which I would say it mostly is, I also play games and text people constantly, and okay, look shit up. Oh my god.
Oh, I'm king of looking something up. Like Alan asked a question, I'm like, I'll look it up right now.
And then and shopping is a really big,
God, me too.
Yeah. Anyway, but so I'm a complete addict and everything. But if you ever do this, it really is hilarious. If you're not on your phone, just like looking around, at all the people who are on their phones, it's kind of spooky or funny, depending,
Mm-hmm.
But also it can be really angering. Like if you're trying to navigate space with other humans and they're on their phones and you're just like, whoa, excuse me, hey. And it's just really annoying to like try to move through space when other people are just like on their phone and like walking around.
Yeah, when I'm in public, I really try not to be because of that, where I'm like, obviously, who cares what a stranger thinks? But I'll get this thought in my head if I'm in a room with other people all on their phones. I'm like, oh, what if somebody like looks at me and then I'm just, a part of everybody else looking at, and if you're having a meaningful, it's like in those moments when I'm truly doing nothing, like where I know I'm like just passing time, I'm like, let me not be on this. And also, I just, especially in public, I just want to be like present just in case. I don't know just in case of what, but
yeah,
in my head, I'm like, this is really like taking all my attention. I get spooked really easily. So I'm like, I need to be more alert. Yeah, like I was in the waiting to get go to the optometrist, and like everybody else in the waiting room was on their phone, and I was like, I'm just scrolling. Let me just sit up and just count the lines on the floor.
No, I used to, when I was a kid, I used to do things like, and I don't know who gave me this idea or where I got it from, but I would always think, what if I had to tell the police something? No, but it's like a game. So it's just
okay.
like, you're just trying to remember as many details as you can. I mean, it doesn't matter because like memory is ridiculously bad, but as a game, as an exercise, it can be really fun.
Yeah.
How many people are in the room with me? What color is everybody's hair? What are they wearing? Or if you're looking at like a scene or something like that. I mean, I don't know. It's just something I enjoy doing.
I like that idea a lot.
It's really
I
fun.
think like being, because, I know you can relate. I struggle I definitely forget things, but I know also when I looked it up, this made me feel better because it's more of an issue with recall. Like if it's not completely out of my brain, that would be like next level forgetful, which would not be good. But, and I mean, obviously that sometimes does happen where a friend will be like, remember when we did this thing? And I'm like, no. And then I feel like shit. But I was trying to look up, like, how do I make my recall better? And I just realized, like, okay, like to remember things, it's not just like a given. You can't just like be in a situation and be like, I'll remember this. Like you have to commit it to your memory. And I that's only occurring to me now in my life. And so I guess I'm realizing how much I don't do that. Cause I mean, usually I'm like, my brain's kind of firing at all times. And I'm just like, so it doesn't really feel like there's time to commit to memory, but you need to. And usually that's what photos are for too. I think it's a good thing you can kind of store like, okay, I remember now because I see this photo. But I also don't like taking photos like every second of my life. I'm not like in Memento. So anyways, that's really good for that. I feel like to be like, okay, let's commit this.
Yeah, to me it's just like, and I don't know how much. See, I was telling somebody. Oh yeah, I was telling somebody who's slightly older than me the other day. I'm like, I have ADD now. Like, not really, but I just found out that I do. But also OCD, and I think the numbers thing, which I've never told anybody. I don't even know if I've told you. But
I feel like we've talked about it before.
We talked about good and bad numbers, but I mean that has implications. Like my heart just started racing. Like getting gas. Like, oh, that's like really nerve wracking. It doesn't have to end on a like whole number, but like it does have to end on a certain number, and not like a certain number, but like if it ends up on like, I don't know, 1357, don't like that. But if there are alternatives to that. But that's like, that has implications, but like, it's not, I don't think it's like, I mean, some people have like compulsive things like, locking the door and, doing things a number of times. I don't have that kind. I just have like numbers in my space kind. And they have, I prefer it. They don't have to be a certain way, but I have preferences, definitely.
Mm.
So I don't know, but it can be kind of fun if I'm in a more lighthearted place. It can be fun to like count, things in the space. But that's a lot of information about my brain that I don't typically share. But
Yeah.
I never, it's not that I thought everybody did it, and it really isn't a big deal that I do it. But I've never told anybody about it.
It's like hard to identify too, because I mean, I haven't been like officially diagnosed or anything, but a little bit. My psychiatrist was like, I'm putting you on this for OCD, but she didn't write it down on my chart or anything, but she did write ADHD down. But I feel like OCD is presented in such a way that if you don't do the specific things that are talked about in the media or whatever, you're like, oh, well, that I don't have that. Like, because it's always presented as a very intentional thing. And I know for some people it is, but for me, I'm not thinking, well, I have to do this to feel good. I just do it to feel good. It's like before I send an email at work, I don't just read it one time. I will spend like 10 minutes reading it. And the fear is so irrational that somehow I've put a slur in there, or like I've attached some photo of myself in there, which would never happen. But I got to make sure that it didn't, because if it did, my life is over. Like that's the way it works. And then my boss is like, why haven't you posted this thing yet? I'm like, oh, it's all ready. I'm just looking over it a million times. And then I get praised for my attention to detail. I'm like, yep, I do have an attention
it's a really
for it.
Thing that I'm doing.
Yep.
I have that.
I'm glad I'm doing this. No, my heart's racing at 1,000,000 miles a minute.
I have the exact same thing. I have it with texts. It's like,
yes, same.
I have to make sure it's going to the right person. Of course it's going to the right person. If I'm having a conversation with one person, it would be going to that one person. But I have to make sure that it's going to that one person. And then I have to, It's a lot.
Yeah. It's very exhausting.
So I know my shrink seems to think that it all goes back to anxiety, but like I said before, I don't care. Also, I think OCD has like there's so many flavors of it, like, and there's so many like maybe like levels of intensity of it.
Yeah.
Like I have intrusive thoughts, you have intrusive thoughts, but I don't think, well, I don't know about your thoughts, but I don't usually think of murdering people. And some people have those where it's just like, that's the intrusive thing.
When I'm driving a little bit.
Well, right. But I mean, that's not one of mine, but anyway, I don't want to go into the details, but so.
Yeah, they're not fun to talk about.
I think that intrusive thoughts are one of those things that a lot of people probably have it, but it's just on the spectrum of like.
Yeah, I think everybody has to have it. But I remember okay, I'll just say my one, because I feel like it does lead into.
Okay.
But the first, I probably have had intrusive thoughts before this, but this one stuck with me because it was so disturbing. And it took me like a decade to tell somebody that I had ever had this thought, because it like would not leave my brain because I was so disturbed. I now know thoughts are not crimes. I obviously did not act upon this thought, but I was, because we used to, in my, school growing up, we did like year-end camping trips, and one of my teachers always brought his children. And so, I mean, his kid was like 3 or something, and she was standing in front of like the campfire, and the thought just loud in my head, like, what if you picked her up and you threw her right into the fire? What would everybody do? Mm-hmm. And I was just like, why? I'm like 11 or something, and I just like I'm not, never been Catholic, but I feel like that gave me Catholic guilt. Like I lived my life as if I had done that. Like, I need to repent. I just had a single thought. Yeah, it's a pretty fucked up one. I wouldn't say it out loud to everybody there. Like, hey guys, well, guess what I just thought of? But like, it's like not a big deal. But for a really long time, I thought it meant I was a bad person.
I think those thoughts that you have when you're a kid, I mean, just like anything when you're a kid, how would you know the difference? Like, how would you know if it's a good or natural or unnatural or typical or not typical? Like, it's happening to you and it feels awful. So you're just like, oh, that must mean that I'm,
fucked up.
I am fucked up. I am a criminal or something like.
Yeah, this is the start of criminals, you know?
Yes.
Normal people don't think these things, do they? Well, you wouldn't know because nobody's advertising it.
Exactly.
You didn't, you know? It's not like I told all my friends, guess what I just thought?
Well, and it can be really tricky because not all, and we should start talking about the movies, but I mean, not all like healthcare professionals are great. So,
No.
I mean, I have had experiences where I've been vulnerable and then you get like the worst possible.
Oh my God. Sorry. Man, I had a therapist a few years ago who I was telling him this really intense thing, you know, something that I was asking for help on. And it was basically about my problem with setting boundaries. And I told him this whole timeline of events and he was like, why wouldn't you say something? I don't fucking know. Why do you think I'm fucking here? Now I feel like shit. He was like, that's really weird that you didn't say anything. I know. You think I don't know that? And then he misgendered me. So then I was like, well, this is our last session. So
yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Fuck that dude. Yeah, I know. And it's like, I don't know. I guess you just have to, I don't know. It's tough with mental illness because I was going to say you just have to trust yourself. Well, it's
a nice thought.
If only that were always true. But good luck to everybody in their mental health journey.
You're in good company here, clearly.
For sure. All right. So I'm taking The Hills Have Eyes. This is the 1977 version. There was a remake. I did not watch it. But it's from 2006. You did.
Years ago, but I did like it.
Okay. And it's by Alexandra Aya. That guy, we've watched some of his films. This is a summary from IMDb. On the way to California, a family has the misfortune to have their car break down in an area close to the public and inhabited by violent savages ready to attack. This was written and directed by Wes Craven, and it stars Susan Lanier, Robert Houston, Martin Spear, Dee Wallace, Russ Grieve, John Stedman, Michael Berryman, and Virginia Vincent. And I don't know why. I just like write down people who are dead sometimes. So
you missed one.
I did?
I looked up Susan Lanier. She'd passed in 2008.
Oh, she's the youngest daughter.
Mm-hmm. Brenda. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sad.
Okay, so Wes is dead, Susan's dead, John's dead. He played Fred, so not a big surprise there. And also Ethel.
Also not a surprise.
Not a surprise there. Cinematography is by Eric Saarinen, and it was edited by Wes Craven. Music was by Don Peake. I don't remember the music. Did you?
No.
Okay.
Maybe it was probably some like...
It was released on July 22nd, 1977, and it has a running time of 89 minutes. How did you feel about this runtime, Mac?
Man, this one kind of felt a little bit long, too. A little bit.
I have to agree.
Could have been an hour, maybe.
Ooh, that's quite a statement.
Maybe an hour and 15 minutes. It just was a little like...
Yeah, there was a little bit of laggy stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so trigger warning for dog death and sexual assault in this one.
Yeah.
So we open on Fred's gas out in the sticks. Fred is grousing to Chekhov's pig when Ruby comes upon him. She wants to trade with Fred for food. She and her family had robbed a military PX and gotten whiskey and radios, but Fred won't trade with her. She wants to run away with him. He says that she couldn't pass for regular folk, and her dad would kill her if he found out. I can't remember exactly what he says, but it's like he would chop you into a million pieces and not just like kill you, but
yeah,
something horrible. Bob and family come to get gas. It's a big family, and they're headed to California. They want to go to the silver mine, but Fred says that all the silver is gone and that they should stick to the main road and just go on to California, a la An American Werewolf. And, well, Little Red Riding Hood. We learn that Bob, the patriarch, and Ethel are celebrating their silver anniversary. Bob is a retired police officer. He retired early because of his heart. One of the dogs is pretty agitated at something, and men wore shorty shorts in the 70s.
Oh boy, did they. We got short, like gym shorts and short jean shorts. I was like, ooh la la. I feel like if I wore this outfit in this area now, I'd be in danger. But at this time, it was like, no, men just dress like this.
I know. I was alive when this movie was made, and I mean, I was a child. But it's so crazy to me when we look at movies where I was actually on the planet at that time, and just how different, fashion is, or what have you.
I loved Brenda's like bright orange shirt and jeans. I thought she looked so cute, and her like blonde hair. She's very, 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 very pretty. I had to write down a family chart because I was so confused at first. They don't make it like super clear, but okay, Bob and Ethel, they have Brenda, Bobby, and Lynn. Lynn's married to Doug, and they have their daughter Katie, and Beauty and Beast are the family's dogs.
Right. Does Brenda wear that orange thing that you were talking about? Basically, when the only other thing she wears, I think, are her PJs, right?
Yeah, and then that's interesting because it's like a big contrast. It's like a baby blue, just like, nightgown. Yeah. So very, complementary colors and all that.
We see someone I have really been into. I don't know if it is a sidebar. I've been really, maybe I'll post a picture. I've been really into that orange-blue combination. I'm doing a seahorse with the blue and the orange. I really do love that combo.
Yeah.
We see someone I just wrote wild garb. They kind of reminded me of that January 6th guy.
Yeah. Yes. I know exactly what you mean. That's what that guy thought he looked like.
Yes. This person's just running around in the background, and Mercury blows up. I think it's Mercury. I got a little confused with the names.
Me too.
But I think it's Mercury blows up Fred's pickup after stealing the pig. It might have been Mars, so don't at me. Fred says there will be hell to pay. Bob's party is seen from the hills, and there's some cryptic talk between Mama and Ruby, I think, because I think Ruby is the only other female person besides Mama.
Yes.
Okay. Brenda finds that they are very close to an Air Force base. They're looking at this paper map, of course. Brenda finds that they're very close to an Air Force base and nuclear testing site. Bob is startled by Air Force jets flying overhead, and when he swerves to miss hitting a bunny, Chekhov's bunny, he crashes the car.
That part made me laugh because it's like the camera is so shaky. It's like so loud. They're like, whoa. And then you just see like camera just zooming in on this bunny. Because that is something my ass would do. I'd be like, let me not hit this small bunny in the middle of nowhere. Oh, now I've crashed my car. Man, at this point, I'm just like, you are just the classic. We are not stopping to ask for directions, Bob. Like, just get your family to fucking LA. Like, just. Well, who gives a shit about the silver mine?
No, I mean, at least Ethel thought it was sweet because it's their silver anniversary tomorrow, so he wanted to go to a silver mine.
Yeah, he wasn't doing that for her.
Probably not. Doug and Bobby were in the trailer, and they let out the dogs. Bobby does some backflips for some reason. Bob slings some horrible slurs, and he reminisces about being a cop for 25 years. And then he says some misogynistic stuff about his wife, and she tells him to watch his mouth and his heart because he's got a bad heart.
Yeah, he just drops a straight N-word, hard R.
Like, I know, I rewound it. I was like, wait, what?
Like, I literally wrote down N-word? Like, I was like, Wes! I mean... Obviously, this guy does
1977.
seem like he would use it, so I'm not saying to censor that part of existence, but it was jarring.
Yes, definitely. And he also, in the same breath, he calls some other people hillbillies.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. He's like, the N-words have done this and the hillbillies have dropped dogs on me out windows.
What does that even mean in Cleveland? Like, what? What's happening there?
Bobby and Brenda see a turkey buzzard flying overhead. Never a good sign. It did not look like a buzzard, but okay.
And I did love, she's like, does that mean that there's a town nearby? And he's like how, a bird in the sky says to sailors that lands nearby? Yeah. No. This movie is funny.
Yes. Through binocular. Oh, brother. It's a good thing you're going second. Okay. Through binoculars, we see the fam, and the person spying on them draws a shape in the dirt and then smudges it as he groans, pretty girl.
Sounds like Beetlejuice. Pretty girl.
The axle on the car is snapped, so they have to walk to town. Lynn and Brenda share a smoke, as Brenda says she hates it out there. Doug calls to Lynn to get his jacket, and she has to kill a tarantula sitting on top of it. And I read the trivia for this. I didn't include it, but that was not scripted. They actually did find a tarantula, and they just put it in the script.
Damn.
She stomps the hell out of it, but the real tarantula was released.
Okay,
unharmed.
Good.
So, I mean, Bobby's staying behind, but the other men are kind of going off in different directions. And before they head out, Ethel asks if they can have a moment of prayer. And everyone's like, Brenda goes, oh, mother, for crying in a bucket. Which I've never heard before in my life, but I love it.
Crying in a bucket.
This is witnessed by Pluto on the walkie, who tells Mama they are stuck good. Beauty the dog is whining inside the trailer, and the family laughs at a memory of Beast killing a poodle in Miami.
I was like, Beast killed a dog in this dog? Like, what? And they're just laughing like, yeah, her owner was, he's pretty tied up, wasn't she? Yeah, your dog killed her poodle, you bitch. Like, what the fuck? Dogs are like, okay, I like dogs. I like the concept of dogs, but they do scare me. And I have a few friends. I won't name names. I've got 2 friends who have dogs that one of them has bitten me. Not seriously, but, it could have been. And then the other one jumps all up over me, even though I've told her multiple times. Because I have a mini fear of dogs. I really can't take it when they jump on me. It freaks me out. And I do the thing where I shield myself, and they that makes them jump on you more. And yeah, just seeing these dogs, in this movie bare their teeth and the way they bark, they freak me the fuck out, man. They scare me.
Yeah, these dogs are German Shepherd dogs, which are one of my favorite breeds of dogs. But I'm with you. I mean, but the point here about the killing the poodle is Beauty barks and whines all the time. Beast doesn't make a sound.
Mm-hmm. Until he's gone for the kill.
That's right. Wonder if that'll come up later. Everything comes up later, which is fine. That's a way to write a story. When Beauty gets loose, she runs off toward the hills. Pluto calls to, and then up in the hills, Pluto's like, come over here, Beauty. And Bobby chases after her, but when he finds her, she has been killed.
Yeah, and I hate it whenever they include a dog whine in a scene. Mm-hmm. It just makes me so sad.
Ethel and the women are calling for Bobby to come back down, but he climbs even higher against all reason. A voice is whispering, "You folks stay away," and some other inaudible dialogue. Bobby falls. But he does this kind of very 70s, kind of half turn. I don't know. That's a very 70s move, I feel like. The women make a fire and try to call for help on the radio. Oh, that was kind of a cute moment.
Yeah, because Yeah, she's like, "Mom, it's Mayday."
That's cute. Brenda has wandered off. She is walking Beast and calling for Bobby. Bobby emerges from the darkness. Ooh, jump scare.
I know. Creepy.
We see Bob now. He has made it back to Fred's gas, but Fred shoots at him. I got a little lost in the sauce here. So Fred shoots at him, but then when Bob goes to find him, Fred is trying to hang himself with his belt.
Like the people do things very quickly. He mutilated that dog very fast, and Fred has hung himself incredibly fast. And yes. I love Bob's line of like, "Get your neck out of that belt, you jackass."
Then Fred tells Bob the backstory of his huge baby. Oh no. I thought this was a joke, right? In that one movie, he came out sideways, and that's a joke, right?
I guess not.
I mean, it is a joke in a film, but in this movie, it's not meant to be that funny, I don't think. But anyway, the baby was 20 pounds. That's not even.
And somehow this wife ended up having another child.
Right.
She didn't die from the first one because, no way. He had a sister,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Because he said he found his baby girl charred.
A cinder.
A cinder.
Yeah. Okay, that line actually makes me really mad because it's another case of men not understanding women's biology, but I don't think that a baby can come out sideways unless it was severely premature, because that's not how that works.
That just it wouldn't even do that.
It wouldn't.
But maybe it was supposed to be a joke.
Maybe it was supposed to be a joke. It's not.
I mean, this is supposed to be like a dumb hillbilly.
That's true. So anyway, this is Pluto. Huge baby, 20 pounds, hairy as an ape, whatever. And then all these accidents start to happen as Pluto grows up. Started.
I thought his son was Jupiter.
Oh, Jupiter. That's right.
Yeah, because Pluto's the big guy.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. But that's one generation.
He's actually younger.
Yeah. Okay. I got it. Okay. So, accidents started to happen with Jupiter, including one time the house got burned down, and I guess that killed the mother and the baby girl. Right. So he took his son out to the desert to die.
And he was he hit him with a tire iron, which I feel like is important. And then he was like, well, he wasn't dead yet, but I figured he'd be dead. Dog, just kill him.
So Jupiter took a sex worker as a bride and had a whole passel of kids. And then Fred is suddenly yoinked out of the building through the window and savagely attacked with a tire iron.
That came back to bite him.
And killed. Back at the trailer, the other dog has broken off the chain. Although I didn't get that. I thought that the hill people had taken the dog.
Yeah.
But I think
it just kind of cuts to the dog ran away.
Yeah, the dog's just gone. Bob is running back to his family, but his heart is not doing so well. He shoots into the darkness, but he collapses on the ground. The wild man takes Bob's gun, and calls out to Pluto. So I thought, well, that's the end of Bob.
Bob wishes that had been the end.
Wow. Doug comes back to the trailer, and he's just in the best spirits.
I love favorite character maybe.
Yeah, he's brought back some supplies, but he says there are no people that way. But yeah, these supplies will come in handy later. We see Beast barking and howling at the hills, and Ruby is eating some meat, which we find out is Beauty. We meet Mama, who is awful, and see that Papa Jupe is crucifying Bob.
One thing I think does not work in this movie are the clothing that the cannibal family wears. It's so offensive to me. It's clearly supposed to be, I mean, even to me, the use of the word like savage is like so many connotations. All these people, I mean, I'm assuming all the actors are white. They all appear to be white. But their garb is very like, seems to be inspired by like native cultures. And that's just like, first off, it's not even scary. Like to me, it would be scarier if they were, because the vibe is supposed to be like, you know, I don't know. I always figured The Hills Have Eyes was more like Texas Chainsaw kind of hillbilly and not whatever this is. Like, and that's why it reads like the January 6th guy, because it's like, you just see this like white dude with a beard and a clean haircut, you know, covered in mud with like animal furs over him. And it looks like cosplay, you know, it is not scary in any way. And makes me less scared of them. It's like Flintstones level, like prehistoric, you know, kind of vibe, and it's not good. Like Mama June's, like not Mama June's, sorry, Mama is, you know, wearing this like, you know, beaded like headband thing, and it's just like, come on,
saber tooth teeth or what?
She looks like a lady who's like told everybody she's 1/16th like Cherokee, and so she's allowed to wear this. Like that's the vibe I get. But she looks just like redneck woman.
Right. Well, now Mac, we got to stop using the word redneck.
But we live in the South. I feel like we should be allowed to say it. I interact with rednecks frequently.
I did a little bit of research.
Oh, okay. Is it offensive? Oh.
Yeah.
Would you prefer I say white trash? I'm just kidding.
No, that's even worse. Probably.
I know.
So no white trash, no redneck, and no hillbilly, although hillbilly has positive and negative connotations.
Now, I will say, I have lived in the South for like, you know, most of my life. And I have a lot of respect for like, you know, I really dislike whenever anybody from like not the South tries to claim that Southern people are all stupid. It's just not true. And it's also really reductive. And it is like, yeah, the schools are bad. That's not like the people who lives here, like their fault, you know? And it's actually very sad. People will never really get a lot better if this shit's not fixed. So I do think it's a harmful stereotype.
Yeah. Doug and Lynn go off to sleep in the station wagon despite Bobby half-heartedly warning Doug not to. Brenda and the baby are asleep, but the lovers get it on in the station wagon as Pluto siphons gas out of the tank. At 11 p.m., Bob still hasn't returned, and Bobby goes outside when he thinks he hears Beast barking. Bobby hears the dog whimpering, so he goes off into the night to find it. It is revealed that the sounds were all made by the same member of the clan. When Bobby gets back to the trailer, he cannot get in, but we see that Pluto is inside the trailer, along with a sleeping Brenda and Ethel. Pluto raids supplies and food from the trailer. Bobby interrupts Lynn and Doug to get their keys.
They were kissing in such a weird way. Like, it was very bizarre.
I wonder what that's like to make out
sloppily make out with your coworker. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but I guess, you know, you're probably used to it.
In some ways, yeah. But I think you would probably, this is what I would imagine, you would probably have to negotiate with every single person you ever do it with throughout your whole acting career, you know?
I mean, you should. I don't think it.
Yeah. Like,
you know, like intimacy coordinators are only getting more use these days than before.
But I mean, I think you'd probably have to say something like, are we going to use tongue? Like, how are we kissing each other? And like, and you have to work with the director, like, how long are we kissing each other? And you'd have to, I don't know, move your heads. I don't know. I think it would be a whole thing.
I mean, like, you know, when they show people kissing in like older movies, they just look like they're like, I don't know, just pushing their faces together. Yeah. It looks so bad.
I think they are.
Yeah.
Because I don't think you wouldn't even want to suggest that like tongues were involved.
Yeah.
Pluto says through the walkie to do it. There's a huge explosion in the distance, and Big Bob yells in pain and calls out for Ethel. Oh.
This part is so tough.
Pluto is holding his hand over Brenda's mouth, and now Mars is calling to his dad. Yeah, okay, Mars is calling to his dad that we in as he enters the trailer.
I hate this guy. Mars is my least favorite, I feel like.
When the family finds Big Bob, they find that he has been crucified and set on fire. Pluto rapes Brenda, and Mars raids the kitchen, including the bird in the cage.
Her finches.
Mars pulls Pluto off Brenda, and then he climbs on top of Brenda after discovering the baby and saying, "Baby's fat, you fat and juicy."
And I really dislike any sort of assault scene when it's like, I know that it's literally called exploitation, so it's like, yeah, it seems par for the course, but crazy how it only ever happens to, young women, and to me, something like this, you already are going to have him killing the bird. And granted, they don't go way over the top as they do in other movies with this assault scene, but a really good way to do that would have just been like to mainly just focus on him killing the bird and have that kind of be like, oh, loss of innocence kind of thing, so we don't have to see him, leave it up to the imagination. If you're going to do it, leave more of it up to the imagination, I think.
Yeah. Ethel is quite upset at seeing Bob in his state, and that's an understatement.
This actress, that was a great performance. She keeps like laughing like hysterically and is like, "That's not my Bob. That's not my Bob." And I thought that scene was like the most chilling.
Yeah, me too. And we haven't seen him yet. So it's just her reaction. And Bobby grabs his gun and vows to get those bastards. Bobby, okay.
Stupid asshole.
Bobby seems like he's about 130 pounds soaking wet, and he's not going to get those bastards. I mean, no. Even if he gets those bastards in his sights, there's no way he's going to get those bastards.
He's got a handgun. Like,
yeah. Mars is, I know what Bob said earlier. He said the N-words shot him with arrows. What?
Yeah, that makes no fucking sense.
Anyway. Sorry. It was been bugging me this whole time. Like, because I knew it was something incongruous. I was just like, and then throwing dogs out the window. Like, I even wonder if that was like a placeholder. Like, the guy just like told the actor, like, just say a bunch of stuff. We'll fill it out later. Like, don't worry about it. Anyway, Mars is going to take the baby, but this is great. But Ethel attacks him with a broom, but then he shoots her. He also shoots Lynn and then hands off the baby to Pluto before trying to kidnap Brenda. Bobby shoots into the darkness. Doug sees his dead wife and near dead mother-in-law and hugs Lynn. Oh, it's so
Part's
sad.
also sad. He's like, "Don't leave me."
Oh, it's rough. But then Doug realizes, I think a little too late, that the baby is gone.
Yeah.
But, I mean, your wife is dead. I mean,
yeah.
I guess I can.
There's a lot happening right now.
There's a lot happening. Doug runs off and shouts, "Why are you doing this? What do you want? Give me back my baby." Beast is still alive.
Yippee!
Pluto walkies to Mercury that if he's good, he'll get to eat some of the baby. But then Beast knocks Mercury off the cliff.
This part made me laugh.
Mama chains Ruby outside the cave, torments her, and forces her to eat Beauty. Well, we already knew that. As punishment for sympathizing with the Carters. The next morning, shortly after Ethel dies, Doug sets out to find the baby while Papa Jupiter and Pluto set out to kill the remaining family members. Beast tears Pluto's throat out. Brenda, that was pretty great, actually.
Yeah.
Brenda and Bobby use Ethel's corpse as a trap to kill Papa Jupiter.
This part is so rough, too, because they're both just sobbing as they do it.
Did not care for that, but the makeup was great.
Yeah.
Doug gets to the cave where he sees Ruby knocking out Mama and carrying the baby away, which she has switched Yeah, she switched out the
pig.
She has switched out the pig for the baby moments before. Doug catches up with Ruby, but Mars follows and attacks Doug. Mars gains the upper hand, but Ruby interferes, enabling Doug to overpower him. Doug then savagely stabs Mars and continues long after he is dead, while Ruby weeps.
Which I did like that. You know, I like Wes Craven's idea of like these are two family units, you know, going against each other. And so despite the fact that these people clearly were not good family or nice people, it is the only family Ruby's ever known. So it makes sense that she would feel some sort of way about them getting killed. But then this is what makes me, you know, realizing like, oh, she's Fred's granddaughter. Why was he such a fucking asshole? Like,
yeah.
Why not be like, yes, granddaughter, you're the only normal one. Wow, I can kind of forge a new relationship because I've lost the other women in my life. Nope. Just get the fuck out of here. They'll never like you in the city. Damn, okay.
Why do you think that is, Grandpa? All right, so here's some trivia, but first I wanted to do a new segment called WOHPSA. The usage of the term hillbilly as a descriptor receives mixed perceptions, often in part due to the nature in which it's used. It may be used in groups as a point of pride, while others consider its usage derogatory, especially when used as an insult. And that's from an article called Geographic Discrimination of Place, Space, Hillbillies, and Home. There's a bunch more, but I'm going to skip it. If you're interested, WoHos, get in touch. Or look it up yourself. Kind of interesting stuff about where that term came from.
And I think it is very important if you do not live in the South, or even if you do live in the South, I do find it to be upsetting. Like when, because it is something you notice, and, you know, I'm not, you know, our family's not from the South, and I don't like, you know, have an accent or anything, but a lot of my friends do, you know, and a lot of like people I've met here do. And it is, if you are somebody who just believes that, you know, oh, every Southern person is this certain way, it is just not true. And I hate whenever I hear about, you know, discriminatory laws coming into effect in the South, and then people who aren't from that state are like, oh, those stupid like swamp people or something. And it's like, who do you think is getting affected the most by this? Oh, it would be the people living in this state. And also, I do feel like it's also pretty like racist to disregard so much of the South, considering like so much of the Black population in America lives in the South, and so much like Black culture is, you know, stolen by pop culture and by most people alive. And where do you think that fucking comes from? A lot of it is the South. So educate yourself before you say something ignorant, please.
Another PSA. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The similarities to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from '74 were intentional. Wes Craven was a huge fan of Tobe Hooper's film. He considered his film in part an homage to it.
Aww.
Or homage, if you prefer. Michael Berryman's condition, hypohydrotic ectodermal dysplasia, means he has a lack of sweat glands, among other things. Despite this, he worked on the movie for 5 months in 100+ degrees heat out in the desert.
This guy is a fucking champ. When I looked him up because I wanted to know more about him, and he just said that he like always wanted to be in a horror movie, which I think is so cool and good for him. And yeah, he seems like a really cool person. And I looked him up, and he lived on a wolf sanctuary for like a decade. Like, this guy seems so fucking cool.
He's the best. John Berryman, if you want to come on the podcast, we'd love to have a conversation with you.
Or Michael Berryman?
Michael Berryman. That's what I meant. What did I say? John?
You said John Berryman. John Barrowman is from Torchwood.
Well, yeah, he is. He's problematic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
According to Susan Lanier, the tension was at first quite high when the crew prepared to shoot the scene where Pluto rapes Brenda. As a gag, to break the ice for everyone, Lanier and Michael Berryman started making out during the first take. The whole crew laughed hysterically.
Oh, that's kind of sweet. In a way?
Sorry, star Michael Berryman said he was once watching the film in a theater when a woman in front of him said aloud, "This movie is sick and depraved." Berryman then thought it would be funny to lean over to her and say, "You're damn right, lady. This movie is sick."
I wish I was her in that moment. It'd be like the scariest moment ever.
To avoid being banned because of the cannibal theme, the German dub refers to the mutants as aliens who hate all mankind. It makes sense, as the characters are called Mars, Jupiter, and Pluto. The VHS version was still banned in West Germany.
We'll get him next time.
According to Wes Craven, the idea of having the baby killed in the film was considered. The cast and crew said they would leave if the plot went that route.
That's fair. I think that's totally fair.
I think it's okay to kill a baby, but...
In a movie. Podcaster Christina Harris says that she says it would be okay to kill a baby. More at 6.
Oh, Lord. Letterboxd. What does Letterboxd have to say about it? Ush gave it a half star. I wish I didn't have eyes. Queer gave it half star. Boring as fuck. Caveman psychos. OHM567 gave it a half star. Way too slow, dated as in all the bad movie tropes, terrible fight scenes, dog shit special effects, bad camera angles, basis of plot, why they get stuck in the desert, so dumb. And then I only included 2 instead of 3 positive reviews because this one is very long. Bronson Lewis says, "Fucking incredible. This is now my favorite quote horror movie." I say that with quotes because this film isn't traditionally scary with things like jump scares and that crap, but a lot more graphic and disturbing than most other horror adjacent films. I love the world this movie is set in. The atmosphere of the mutants and their little town is absolutely incredible. Does this movie have standard horror cliches? Yes, but I don't think that's necessarily a cardinal sin or anything. Overall, I'd say this movie is fantastic, and anyone on the fence about watching it should. Warning about violence and gore, though. Brenna12345 gave it 5 stars. Get his ass, beast! How would we like to rate this, Mac?
What's a good unit of measurement? Blue lines that are not roads?
Oh, Ethel, you dumb bunny. Sure.
I'd give it 3.5 blue lines.
All right. I would give it 4, maybe 4.5.
Oh, wow.
It's quite good. And it's part of the canon. And
yeah.
I think it's like the beginning, like a lot of movies refer to this one, you know?
It has its place in history, and it is important, but it did nothing for me.
Oh, wow. Nothing that did nothing for you?
It made me
Michael
laugh
Berryman?
Sometimes. Maybe.
Yeah, I thought it was very funny in some places.
I enjoy Michael Berryman. I feel like they're very lucky that he agreed to do the film and that they like. I mean, he's the face of the poster. He's probably the most memorable part, but it's like but the movie didn't make him. He's a man that exists already, you know? Yeah. And at the same time, even though he's chill with it, it seems, and, you know, I'm glad he was able to pursue acting, which he clearly likes to do. It is like, well, we are supposed to look at this guy and think like, wow, you know, nuclear mutant, you know, and that doesn't feel great, you know?
Right.
He's like a real man.
What have we learned from this film?
don't listen. If the guy in the desert with a gas station in the middle of fucking nowhere says, don't go off the main road, don't go off the main road. I don't think he's lying to you. What does this man have to gain from this? It's all Bob's fault.
Okay, I had a really hard time with this movie in terms of there's so much going on in the beginning, it seems to me, like the very first scene, like you're getting all this information and there's all this, I don't know, there's all this stuff going on. So I probably watched the first part about 4 or 5 times. And like from minute, like I got 6 minutes in, then I rewound it. Then I got, it was that kind of thing. And I at one point with the stay on the main road, I was like, you know what? Fuck the main road. God damn it. But
why? Why fuck the main road?
It's boring. I mean, I'm just thinking of like Little Red Riding Hood and like especially like women, like don't go off the path because you have to stay on the path. Otherwise you'll get hurt. Because why? Because there are monsters in this world and you have to avoid them. Instead of like addressing why there are monsters. I'm sorry.
That's a little bit beyond The Hills Have Eyes.
But that whole idea of stay on the main path, like I think it all goes back to fairy tales and the whole idea that the world's dangerous and especially dangerous for girls and women.
Yeah,
and
which was right. True in this movie.
Yeah. And that's not, I mean.
The whole message of the movie is kind of bad. It is just like.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are people who will get you. There's kind of nothing you can do. I mean, you might live, but you'll lose, your wife and most of her family, and you'll be traumatized forever. So like that is the message of the movie.
At least the baby survived. That's good.
Only because the crew didn't, like, if it was up to Wes Craven, that baby would be dead. So
I know, I feel like I've got a lot in common with Wes Craven. Kill that fucking baby.
Kill the baby.
But it's not done very much, it's,
it is now.
Now, sure.
Yeah.
But remember that one Cronenberg movie we watched when they killed the baby and we were like, oh my God.
It has to be done effectively. You can't if you just kill the baby, it's like, yeah, that's shocking. What more do you want from me?
Right.
Like it needs to serve some sort of purpose.
Okay, so I think I know the answer to this. Would we watch it again?
Like I would, but like I don't want to.
Dare.
There's some movies where I'm like, no. Like, sorry, Men, no. I will not be watching Men again. I would, like, if somebody was like, Mac, I've always wanted to see this movie. Would you watch it with me? I'd be like, okay. Like, I was telling a friend about Men, and then she was like, that sounds really funny. Like, can we watch it together? I was like, no. Like, you can watch that on your own time. But I would say yes if somebody asked me.
This one. Yeah, I would watch this one. I would probably watch this one in October again.
Damn. Okay. Why don't you give it 5 stars then?
I don't know.
Sorry, 5 blue lines.
Some of the makeup is just insanely bad. Like Joopy's.
I like that.
It's really bad.
I like the huge gash in his nose. Yeah, I like that.
It's so obviously clay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like it. All right. Did you have a favorite part of this movie?
Any part with Pluto. I really liked him. I did like the part, is it Mars who gets killed by the dog? Like at one point he's
Mercury.
Like, who?
Mercury.
He's like, maybe Papa will let me eat the toes. Then he immediately gets yeeted off the mountain by Beast, and that made me holler. So any part with the family, the cannibal family, made me laugh. So more of them, please.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I don't know. I like. I don't know. I'm just the only thing that's sticking out to me is when Doug comes back and like all this shit has gone by that he has no idea about, and he's like, "Hey, family!"
He's so chill. I know, and like Bobby's like rightfully worried about where his dad Bob is, and he's like, "Oh, well, he wouldn't be coming back as soon as me anyway. Don't worry about it."
Yeah,
he's so chill.
He's not getting crucified in the woods or anything.
He's not gonna be burnt alive or anything.
Who wins the You Fool Award?
Bob.
Bob.
Fred, also. Fred really could have.
Fred.
He could have avoided all this.
Yeah, he should have hanged himself. Awful.
I was saying he should have killed Jupiter. But I guess I'm advocating for child murder then, so yippee!
That would have saved a lot of distress and horror.
Maybe he could have, helped him.
Should we move on to 100 Bloody Acres, Matt?
Let's do it. So our second film is 100 Bloody Acres. I can't do an Aussie accent. 100 Bloody Acres from Australia. Here's a brief plot summary from IMDb. Reg and Lindsay run an organic fertilizer business. They need a fresh supply of their, quote, secret ingredient to process through the meat grinder. Reg comes across two guys and a girl with a broken down vehicle on their way to a music festival. It was written and directed by Cameron Cairns and also Colin Cairns. It stars Damon Harriman, who played Charles Manson twice.
Twice, yeah.
In the same year. This guy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was or he auditioned for it in the same year. But yeah, he played Charles Manson in Mindhunter and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and he's very cute.
Oh, he's adorable. I knew him from Justified. He plays Dewey in Justified.
And Angus Sampson, who we just saw Furiosa. Guys, if you have not seen the Furiosa movie, go see it. It's so good. Or watch it when it goes on streaming. I don't know. He plays the organic mechanic. Totally different vibe. But I was like, where have I seen this guy? Oh, and then I do love that his name is just the organic mechanic in the movie.
In both, yeah. He's also in Fury Road.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't either, but that he's got a credit as the organic mechanic in Fury Road.
Interesting.
And he's also in the Insidious franchise.
Oh, I wonder who he is.
I'm not sure, but I think I know him best from Fargo season 2. He plays Bear Gerhardt, and I have a slight crush.
He's handsome.
On Angus Sampson.
I think that makes sense because you know who he kind of looks like a little bit? Jermaine Clement, who I know you have a crush on. Don't you think?
Yeah.
If they both had mutton chops at the same time, they would look related.
He's very pretty when he's completely clean shaven too.
Yeah, I agree. And also stars Anna McGahan. And who plays Wes?
I think that name is usually pronounced McGann.
McGann. I need to also say who played Wes because he ended up turning into one of my favorite characters. At first I was like, this guy sucks. And then I was like, okay, wait a second. This guy rocks. John Jarrett and where is he? Jamie Christian is Wes. Okay. That guy needs a better stage name. That's a pretty basic name. Cinematography by John Brawley, edited by Dale Dunn and Joshua Waddell, and music by Glenn Richards. It was released August 4th, 2012 at Melbourne International Film Fest with a runtime of 90 minutes. I thought this one felt like 90 minutes in the best way of got in, got out. Very nice.
Yes.
If you can't tell already, I very much enjoyed this film. This was a great find, Mother.
Oh, thanks. Oh, yeah. Well, we were going to watch High Lane, which is a French film, and the only version I could find was dubbed. And I said,
cannot do.
No.
We say we're not afraid of subtitles, so we have to be true to our word. And then
afraid of dubs.
Yeah, I am afraid of dubs. And then Mom sent a few pictures of other ones, and I just picked one random one. She watched the trailer and was like, "Oh, there's blackface in this one. Oh, no, let's not do that one then." And I actually feel like this movie has a lot in common with Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Yeah.
They're both very kind of sweet, sweet comedy horror movies.
Yeah. What year was Tucker and Dale? But the Tucker character
2010. So it did come out. It could have been inspired by it.
Could have been.
All right. So, while making local deliveries and the occasional roadkill pickup, Reg encounters the crash site of a van with a dead driver inside. So he kind of like, because he goes, this scene is so funny because he spots, like, you know, it's a car just like has run into a tree, and you know, there's a guy clearly like airbag filled and whatnot, and he just kind of steps out and he's like, "You all right, mate?" Like, he's clearly not all right. And but he kind of like looks around and begins hauling the body off to his truck, and he ends up like running over the guy's legs also. I don't know if that was an accident or if that had a purpose. And then he, you know, hauls him in, and when he closes the truck, it chops the poor guy's fingers off, and then he just kind of scoops him up and throws him in the back. Like, he's clearly not like an evil dude. He's treating this guy like he's roadkill, which in his mind it is. And so then he makes his way back to him and his brother's plant. And we can see on the side of his truck, it's like the Morgan Brothers, you know, fertilizer business. And on the back, it literally says, "We'll fertilize ya." And it's like not a very good painting on it either. It's like him and his brother supposedly. And we'll find out why it's not the best painting later.
That's a great payoff.
It really is. This movie is amazing. But then he's delayed because then we meet these three tourists who are stuck on the side of the road. Sophie, a young redhead, who's we see first making out with this other guy named Wes, and then they're making out, and Wes seems like a total douchebag because he is, and they spot this kind of like grave site that has 6 people, and it's called like the Salvo 6 grave site. And like, you know, Wes is such a dickhead, and he like picks up one of the pictures, and you know, he calls this guy like the R word, you know, maybe he was, you know, something. And then he's interrupted by an older woman who, you know, is like, "Hey, put that shit down." And so then they walk back. Well, it turns out Sophie's not dating Wes. She's actually dating James, who is friends with Wes, but, you know, obviously James does not know this. And when they come back, we see that James has like an engagement ring for Sophie. And at this point, I'm assuming James is the main character. And I think this movie does a great job of subverting expectations like at every go. Because, yeah, James is working on their car because it's broken down. And but they can't seem to get it to work. Well, no, he does get it to work. He asks Wes to not punch the gas, but he does. So then it breaks. And so then the old woman is driving out, and I love this. She's like, "Don't worry, Margaret, we won't be stopping for them." And they're like calling, like, "Lady, it's us, you know, we're not bad people." But she just drives off. So then luckily Reg's truck comes down the road, and they flag him down, and he first is driving by, but then spots Sophie and stops because she's so beautiful. And she hops in and, you know, asks like, "Hey, you know, how are you?" I mean, when she hops in, she's like, you know, leaning over the window and stuff, being very flirtatious. And they're going to a music festival in town. So they're asking if he'll drive them. And I actually looked it up I always forget how fucking big Australia is, because I have a friend who lives in Sydney. And when I looked it up where they are, it starts with a Y. I forget where it was. Yandoi. It's like so far away. So they are in the country. And Sophie does say at one point that she was like a country girl, but has now moved to the city. So, you know, Reg is like, "Well, you know, I can't really take y'all. I'm sorry." And so he drives off, but then he looks back at Sophie and he's like, well, you know, I actually thought maybe I can take you guys. You know, he's very changeable. And so he's like, "But guys, I have to fix the stuff in the back first because the dead body is back there along with strung up kangaroos and whatnot." And so he hides the body amongst all these like bags of fertilizer, which is obviously not going to end well, and asks the boys if they could hop back there. And
yeah, why don't you boys go in the back and
yeah, I'll sit up front with the nice lady. Yeah. And the guys are immediately like, is this like safe? He's like, oh yeah, just like don't breathe it in. But yeah, it's plenty safe. There's like flies everywhere. It's disgusting. And he notices the fingers and he just kind of tries to like scoot them away, but the guys just walk over them. So okay, that's fine. So then Sophie gets to know Reg. He's listening, trying to listen for this advertisement that is going to be played. There's like the DJ's name is Bernie, and every time the ad for, him and his brother's company doesn't play, he's like, fucking Bernie, come on. And but the music in this movie is great. I don't know the history of Aussie country music, but it sounds amazing. And Reg and Sophie are bonding because she knows all these songs, and they're just talking about being from the country and whatnot. And she even kind of begins spilling the beans that she is cheating on her boyfriend, and doesn't like outright say it, but basically says it. She's like, it's funny because she begins this whole dialogue of like, sometimes you just make mistakes in the heat of the moment and you're just like, fuck it, like forget the consequences, I'll just I'll do this. And he's just nodding like, yeah, that does happen sometimes. Yeah. Meanwhile, Wes and James in the back are, just chit chatting. James reveals that he's planning on asking Sophie to marry him. Wes pops a tap of acid because he just, at this point, Wes is just like a dickhead. I don't like him. I think he's an idiot. I'm kind of like, why would these two ever be friends?
Also, we learned that Sophie is from this area, but she's been in boarding school for most of her life. And the other two guys are English.
Yeah, but the actor, I looked up because I was like, where are they supposed to be? Like, they are Aussie, so I don't think their British accents are like that good.
No. It's
kind of confusing. I wish they would have given us like a specific place they were from so I could at least like center myself.
I assume they were, I assume they were English because they're saying things like, I don't know. I think I thought they were kind of using Britishisms.
I don't know. Because my friend who is Aussie, like I think I've only ever heard, John Jarrett level of like Aussie accents in my life before this point. And when I first talked to her, I knew she was Aussie, but was surprised because in my ears, she sounded British, but she's not. I think there's just a huge breadth of accents. And Americans mostly just hear the like, this is a knife kind of Aussie accent.
Also, there's a big deal in this movie made between like city folk and country folk.
Yes. So, which, I mean, makes sense because it seems like the boonies in Australia are like the boonies, like,
right.
Really out there. Whereas, the cities are very metropolitan. I've never been there. So, I am talking out of my ass right now. So, at this point, Reg is even like, well, first I'll stop by, the plant, but then I'll drive you all to the festival. But he loves talking to Sophie so much that he's like, I can just drive you guys straight to the festival. Like, really, everything would have been smooth sailing. But unfortunately, as they are talking, James looks and he sees the hand with the cut off finger sticking out from the manure and just starts freaking out. And so they're asking, if he can open up. At one point he stops and he pretends to open up the back, but doesn't actually, and just keeps on going. So then he, while all this hubbub is happening, he's like, why don't I just stop by the plant first? And so when they get there, Wes and James are freaking out. And then we meet Lindsay, who is played by Angus Sampson. And he is very much like, intimidating, country guy, and is kind of like, who's this? He's like, oh, this is Sophie. And he just immediately detains Sophie inside this, their like workplace building. And they live in a really like, have a ramshackle kind of country looking operation going on. And Reg is saying like, well, I found a dead guy on the side of the road and I was thinking, we could use him. So we can kind of gather that these Salvo 6 were used as fertilizer because they have this big order coming up for, what's his name? Like Charlie Wick. They have a big order coming up for a Charlie Wick. And, if his things don't grow like they used to, he might go to Yates. So now they're going to use humans.
So, by the way, Boar and this movie both make reference to Charlie's Farm, which I believe is another horror film.
Oh.
And so at some point we should look up Charlie's Farm.
We should. Because I love Boar. I love this movie. Like, Australia got some really good horror movies.
Keeping John Jarrett employed, that's for sure.
And and how could I forget Wolf Creek? But they have really these kind of more lighthearted horror movies. They've all been really good. I mean, 2 that I've seen, but I've enjoyed them both. So Lindsay berates Reg because this is a pretty short-sighted thing. And Lindsay, we can surmise, is probably the brains of this operation. And he's like, don't go making moves on your own. And Reg is like, well, you're always telling me I need to take initiative. And, but he ultimately agrees because he has a point that they do need bodies. And so then when they're opening up the truck to gather James and Wes, they're distracted because right then and there, and also I should have mentioned, when we come up and we first meet Lindsay, we're just seeing him working and he's kind of got a radio attached to his belt. He's also fucking Bernie. He's also waiting for the ad. So then the ad finally comes on and they're both looking at each other, smiling, oh, it sounds great. And then, things start to go awry because James and Wes are trying to escape. But they've got a cattle prod and they get them all strapped down. So during this, we've got a great scene where Lindsay and Reg are working to grind up the guy from the car crash who's already dead, whereas the other 3 are tied up. And we have James tied up kind of to a pole with duct tape. And, Wes tells Sophie, don't worry, I've got this knife. But he is tripping absolute balls in this moment. And so there's just all this, they're trying to sneakily, cut themselves free, but he can't really figure it out because he's so high. Meanwhile, Reg and Lindsay are just having a regular old chit chat. They don't have 3, they're not grinding up a human man. And, Lindsay's I got to be getting the new Jarvis system or, cause just, talking shop. So as they're about to lower, the guy from the car crash into this grinder, his eyes flutter open and Reg realizes that he's alive and he's like, wait, and the guy goes, 1 sound check. And then immediately his hands get lowered in. So he starts screaming and Reg is like, Lindsay, we have to pull him up. He's still alive. And, but nope, he just keeps going in there. And this has to have been a little bit inspired by Tucker and Dale versus Evil, because at one point, the guy is dead, but Reg manages to pull his legs free, whereas, there's only half of him now. And he's like, I got you, man. I got you. I'll save you. And the same scene happens in Tucker and Dale versus Evil, but I'm okay with it because it's clearly to me, it seemed like an homage and it is funny.
That just happened in another movie I saw. Somebody got run down by a car and then somebody pulled them away from the crash, but it was just
their legs. Body. And they're like, I got you, man. I got you. Oh.
But there's, I like this is very funny. I mean, they are just sort of chit-chatting and they're putting their hairnets on and then Angus is putting a beard hairnet on. And I was just oh, this is so good.
Yeah, it's done so well.
Yeah. And the only thing the kids don't seem as horrified as I wish they were. But
yeah.
But other than that, I think it's a really, really a funny scene.
Yeah.
But one thing is Lindsay, I always forget that's his name. Lindsay checks the guy's pulse.
Oh, he does. So he does know.
Yeah, before he strings him up.
So he did know. I didn't catch that. And then when they, are checking, there's a cute little bit of special effects after, they've got, I don't even know what this fucking concoction is because this is just not how fertilizer is made. I've never been there, but I have been at compost heaps before. And yeah, there's no, I could be wrong. I did study horticulture for 4 years, but none of this seems accurate. But he's got this test tube of something and it has this little like special effects mist, and it's bubbling, and they're like, wow, the potassium levels are higher when the person, well, in Reg's words, hasn't carked it yet. And so then they're like, okay, well, let's go get James then, because, well, Lindsay starts grabbing Sophie, but Reg is like, oh, well, why don't we try this guy first? And like, gestures to James. When they string him up, the engagement ring falls into the barrel, of course. And again, we have this whole thing again with like, and the knife eventually that Wes has gets thrown and it just lands straight in the top of his thigh. And he's got like, he kind of laughs a little bit. There's another great moment in that whole thing where like he's dropped it, but then he catches it with his foot and goes, yes! And then everybody looks at him and he's like, oh. Like, it's so funny because I've never been on acid, but I have been high before. And you do just like, if you're not careful, you do just say stupid shit that everybody's like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if acid is the best. I don't know. It's fine.
But it's funny.
I don't remember feeling giddy.
Yeah, I would have felt like
acid.
In this moment, I probably would have been like, oh God, it would have been scarier.
Right. I think you would, and I never had a bad trip, but I mean, so I don't know. But I mean, I feel like this is, if you're ever going to have one.
Probably be chained up, I do remember one time I was with friends high at an IHOP when I was a while ago, a few years ago at this point. And after I finished, at IHOP, they've got, or at any restaurant, they've got, maybe like a little placard on the table for their specials. It was like during Halloween, so I wanted their Halloween pancakes. And I was like, thank you. And I handed the placard to the waitress and she goes, no, you keep that. And I was like, oh God, she knows I'm high. Like, I was so embarrassed. Her like tone was just like, fuck my life, these stupid fucking teenagers. So James is strung up. Wes gets free and doesn't free anybody else, just goes and steals their truck. Lindsay sends Reg out there with a gun, but this guy can't kill anybody. And so he shoots a hole and it just lands into the painting of Lindsay in his forehead. And he's like, we can buff that out. And so Lindsay, oh God, this scene where, Lindsay's clearly pissed that Reg let Wes get free. So he hands him the gun. And he begins to like pull this chain to open up this garage door. And it just takes a comedically long amount of time. And he just keeps going. And Reg is like, do you need any help? It's one of those like, oh, I know this person's mad at me. Like, can I help? And he just does it all himself, gets in and drives off. It's so funny. So Sophie takes advantage of the situation because, she can recognize that Reg is not as evil as Lindsay is and tries to seduce him while, James is strung up with, tape on his mouth. And she's like, it's so ridiculous. She's like, you like touch my face. Like, okay, let my hair out. Okay, now kiss me. And so they do begin to kiss. But then Reg, this might be my favorite scene because it's just so crazy considering the situation. Reg just is like, wait a second. Like, you told, like, I know what you're like. I know what you like girls are like, You're already banging 2 guys. Well, now you're banging 3. And he's just like throwing stuff around the room. And he's like, you're not country. You're a city slut. And she's like, no, like I swear I'm not. And obviously this is news to James. And it's just so funny to me how I think this scene is done really well because even though is technically, this idea is problematic. It's like considering the situation that Reg has put this woman in, he now has the gall to be like, well, hey, this is wrong. Your boyfriend's right there. You're trying to kiss me? Like, it's so stupid, but it made me laugh so hard.
Well, I didn't look it up, but he keeps using the term thingo. You want to thingo with me?
What is that? I guess that's just sex.
Yeah. But I don't know if it's like like you want to
boink me?
You want to do it with me?
Yeah.
Like,
he's such a
kid would
baby
say.
man.
Yeah.
And he just leaves them in there and goes, we see he's got this cute little trailer that says like Reg's Place and these little flower pots outside is very charming. And he begins just like furiously like masturbating in his bed, and on his ceiling, there's only pictures. And I looked her up. I wrote her name down. What was it? It was like Rachel
Gibney or something?
Yeah, Rachel Gibney. And it just seems like she is, just, it says both she's from New Zealand and Australian. So I don't know which one it is, but she, is just well known in Aussie TV. So, clearly a reference that we wouldn't understand. I got to ask my friend. But
it seems like she's a pretty like PG rated.
Yeah. Just like
beauty.
If you had like Angelina Jolie on your ceiling, like from People magazine.
Oh, she's too hot.
You think?
She's too sexy. Like, I think this is just like a wholesome person. Like, I'm trying to think of an example in American culture, but not necessarily like a sexy, but like a nice.
Yeah, she's like blonde and, like an adult. Also, what I liked is that she was like, not super young or anything. Like, seemed like a healthy age and whatnot. Like, just normal. But he does have pictures of her taped to his ceiling, and he's got this like hanky that he's holding. So he's going through it right now. Yeah, I think that's his like, wank sock or whatever. So yeah, that's happening. So now we cut back to Lindsay, who's pursuing Wes.
But I'm sorry, but he stops wanking, and he like pulls his pants up and he takes all the pictures down.
Oh yes, he does. And then we see, because they do grow fertilizer, they've got this patch of giant pumpkins, and we can just imagine what he's about to do, which kind of hurt my heart because at work, no, he's about to destroy them. That's what I mean. Because at my old job, we were trying to grow this massive pumpkin for the state fair, and it ended up being this horrible, like so pointless. But it is wild when you're growing, I've never been a part of growing exceptionally large produce, but the idea of just destroying something like that, like, kills me a little bit because it takes so much work and fertilizer to do that. So cut back to Lindsay. They're at this like, there's this place called Fairyland, and I don't know what this is. Is that where the festival is, or? No,
this is just like one of those weird gardens, and there's all these mannequins and like dolls and stuff.
Yeah, there's nobody living there, it seems, but it's kind of, well, you do see these in the country though. It's like, you do see them, and they always have cool art, but kind of kooky a little bit. They're very charming. So, Wes manages to knock Lindsay out, but he's still tripping balls. So we have this whole, this is where I begin to fall in love with Wes. We have this whole scene where like the mannequins come alive, and he's like sitting with them and talking with them. And he's just like, he's just like having the time of his life. And at one point he then goes back to this well and looks down into it, and then he sees Lindsay's reflection, and he looks up, he's like, hey, oh, and then Lindsay just hits him with the butt of his gun. So now he's in the boot of his car, and as Lindsay's driving back, he gets stopped by a policeman played by none other than Mr. John Jarrett, king of the Aussie cameo. And, it's so funny because the vibe between these two, we've all been here of like talking to somebody, like it's kind of like he's a townie, like that kind of vibe. He's like, are you going to go to this festival? Like, we just get a lot of also background detail about how important the Salvo Six are to this community. It's like, they're constantly having remembrances. Like, it's a huge deal that these six died in a car accident, but their bodies were never found. And, it's a huge part of their culture. And he's like, oh, and I heard, this scene is so great. So he manages, to like, because there's like a little thump in the boot of his car, and Lindsay manages to talk it away, being like, oh, I caught a roo back there. And like, they go through this like death kick, when they're about to cark it. Death twitch. And John Jarrett, policeman, is like, death twitch. Oh, I like that. And he's like, and then they're about to get back in the car. And he's like, by the way, I heard the ad on the radio. And Lindsay's like, you did? He's about to go in the car and he immediately like brightens up. He's like, what'd you think? Oh, I thought it was so funny. And he's like, all right, I'll see you later. Like he goes back in the car. But then you hear, hello? From Wes in the boot.
It's just it's comedic. I mean, it's just like set up so great.
Yeah.
That Jarrett's like putting his helmet on and he's taking it off. And then, right before he gets it back on, hello?
And it keeps escalating like, hello? Like, get me out of this boot. Like, get me out of here. And he's like, open up the boot of the car, man. He's like, I can't do that. And so he opens it. He sees Wes in there. And then Lindsay shoots Mr. John Jarrett. And drives away. So now Reg is beginning to really have second thoughts. And another thing Wes says in the video, he goes, he wants my potassium.
Oh, yeah.
So Reg goes back into the little area with James and Sophie, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna get these guys out of here. He comes back and Sophie's like, hey, like, can you just like untie us? And he's like, I just want to say, I'm really sorry that, like, he gives this really heartfelt apology. He's like, you don't want to die. I don't want you to die either. So of course you're going to try to kiss me. I don't hold it against you. And I'm really sorry that you're here. And she's like, can you, take off James's like duct tape? So he does. And James is like, you slut. He's just like so angry and so pissed off. And he's like, hey, you don't talk to her like that. And he's like, she's a real woman. And it's so great because James is not understanding the gravity of he's strung up, not understanding the gravity of the situation he's in, which is really funny. And Sophie's like, really? Like, you want to go through this now? And he's like, I need details. There's a sliding scale of infidelity. So I need to know how I can forgive you. Like, was it one time? Were you drunk? Did he initiate? Was it oral? Was it anal? Was it, it's just, and it's so funny because people do think like this. Like,
sure.
And she's like, it happened. Like, what more is there for me to say? And she's got a point where it's kind of like, if you're not okay with it happening, you're not okay with it. So Nancy, we do hear them talk about an Aunt Nancy. Turns out it's that lady from the beginning who drove away and with her dog, Margaret. Maigret, there's an I in there somewhere. Maigret. So yeah, she surprises the brothers with a visit. Before she can get in there, Lindsay, he has a scuffle with Reg and stuffs him in the boot with Wes and cuts off Wes's hand. We get this amazing scene with Reg and Wes in the boot. Maybe my other favorite scene where, because at one point also Wes manages to get this is why his hand gets cut off. He goes and he shoots and he hits Reg in the shoulder. But then Lindsay cuts his hand off with the gun, falls down, and he just kind of kicks the hand away and stuffs Reg in the boot of the car with Wes. Now Reg and Wes are together and he's like, hey mate, I'm like so sorry about shooting you. He's like, no, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. He's like, I'm really worried about my hand. And he's like, man, don't worry. There was actually a guy, I think his name was Bob something, who... what was his Bob Clay or something? It was Bob Clay. And he's like, he got his hand cut off and they were able to attach it just fine. They lifted him in a helicopter and, it was fine. Well, the hand actually didn't take very well. So, he wasn't really cut out to be a farmer anymore. But the good news is he was able to make it as a painter and he actually painted this truck. It's and as Wes is hearing this, he's just like, oh, okay. All right. And he's like, do you think I'll be able to go in the helicopter? And he's like, I think that definitely will happen. It's so sweet. It's
so sweet.
It's really, really sweet. Meanwhile, Lindsay, is trying to, hold off Nancy. And he's like, well, actually, Reg is not here right now. He's actually going to be gone for a while. He's actually going on a flight. He might, like it there and he might not ever come back. And we begin to feel this weird sexual tension. I'm not saying it's weird because she's old, but it is she's called
Well,
Auntie Nancy.
Aunt Nancy.
Probably they shouldn't boink, but they begin to have this like little sexual tension. The dog May Gray is, you know, biting on the hand that's still holding the gun. Sophie and James are just, you know, fighting about the infidelity. So May Gray actually is able to open up the car, and so Wes and Reg are able to get out. Reg tells Wes, James, and Sophie to stay there. He's going to get the keys, and you know, then you know they'll all be able to leave and get help. So Reg has like a gun, I think. He has some sort of tool. Lindsay and Nancy begin to have sex. And when he enters, I mean, we see like Lindsay's head under like Nancy's skirt. You know, it's so over the top. But Reg decides to stealthily steal Lindsay's keys so he can just leave. But as he's about to take them, Wes, still tripping balls, stumbles into the house because he's just obsessed. I mean, with good reason, for finding his severed hand. And the severed hand is actually in the room with Lindsay and Nancy. Like the dog has put it on, like it's right where Nancy can see it. And she screams. And so in a fit of rage, Lindsay kills Wes and Nancy, which is so sad. And Reg flees with the keys. So James and Sophie panic when they hear the gunshots, and they're running away. But Sophie decides to return to the farm when she hears Reg call out to her. And James goes, "Well, we're done." So then after a brief struggle, Lindsay overpowers Reg and ties him up above the grinder. And he begins to prepare him for the grinding. But Sophie returns and distracts Lindsay. And then Reg is able to pull him into the grinder and kills him. So afterward, Sophie and Reg share a momentary attraction. I mean, there's this whole slow-mo where the blood is just, you know, gushing up into Reg's face, but like Sophie's kind of looking at him in awe and wonder. And so then, and also before, I forgot to mention, Reg had grabbed the engagement ring from the barrel and he holds it up to her, and then the film ends. And I actually did not see this end credit scene. Can you explain what happens?
No, I didn't either. I was watching on Freevee and it just went into the next show.
Yeah, I like went through because I was wondering if there was more, because I was like, wow, that kind of feels like an abrupt end, and I didn't see anything. So maybe this is like DVD only.
But it says James hysterically runs onto the road and is killed by a reckless driver.
Damn.
So there's nothing standing, I guess.
Yeah, they're good.
And Reg and Sophie's away.
Even though there's like also dead bodies. I mean, Reg was so, he was like, he asked Nancy when he stumbles in, like, call the police and say that, you know, the Morgan brothers are turning themselves in. Like, Reg is fully prepared to, you know, he feels really bad, and as he should. So here's some trivia. The film's co-director, Colin Cairns, said of this movie, "We wanted 100 Bloody Acres to be pure horror. We just wanted it to be a really scary Texas Chainsaw Massacre type of film. But somehow, as work progressed, another, less sinister element found its way into the script. As we were writing it, we found ourselves writing jokes. We just couldn't help ourselves. But as the characters and the situations developed, it seemed to be going down a slightly different path, and we just embraced that." And I'm glad that they did. I feel like, you know, it is really hard to come up with an original scary concept. And when you're going for serious, pure horror, I think it might be better to do something silly than to, you know, go for something super serious and fail at that. But I think they did a great job. I love this movie. In 2008, the Cairns brothers, Colin Cairns and Cameron Cairns, were participants in the Australian Film Commission's Development Lab in Division, where they first met producer Julie Ryan. John Jarrett plays a police officer in the movie who tries to save a victim from a killer, and this is a role reversal, of course, from his portrayal in Wolf Creek, where he was the killer. I mean, kind of, it seems like all of his roles now are subverting, you know, that iconic role.
Yeah, I mean, in Boar, he plays
A nice
really
dad.
sweet dad.
Yeah. So how should we rate this? Potassium?
Yeah,
Potassium?
vials of potassium.
You know what? I'll give it 4.5 vials.
Okay.
I will take off a little bit. I felt like this is really nitpicky, but I felt like the use of like the R word was a little bit like,
Right.
maybe you didn't need to do that. But that's about it. I feel like in the
What you
were you gonna say?
You give it 4?
4.5.
4.5?
Yeah. What would you give it?
I think I liked it slightly less than you did, but but talking with you about it, I think I started to like it more. So it seems like it's one of those that it would probably benefit from watching with a group.
I think so. Watching alone, you have to be in the mood for it. But if we watched it together, I'm sure we'd have a great time.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's a really well constructed comedy, and I just think those are hard. Plus, a horror comedy.
Yeah, those often fall flat for me.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we've had pretty good luck actually.
Yeah,
on this show with them. But so Aussie and New Zealanders seem to know what they're doing.
I think so, and I would say, I think South Korean horror films can also be incredibly funny. I think they might be South Korean horror films.
That's a different thing to me.
I mean, because they can be genuinely horrifying and funny, whereas I feel like this was more funny than horrifying.
Yeah, just funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have we learned? I don't know how much I've learned. Maybe don't trip acid surrounded by strung up kangaroos. Maybe check somebody's pulse before you declare them dead.
Oh gosh. But I knew that was not going to end well.
Yeah, that poor guy. The biggest victim. Also Nancy. Poor Nancy. Sure. I feel bad for her.
Nancy. She did not deserve that.
She didn't do anything wrong. She had poor taste in men, but that's about it. Would we watch it again? Yes.
Yes.
Favorite scene and or death? I loved the one of Wes and Reg in the boot. I mean, any scene. Honestly, Wes, he really became my favorite. I was so torn when he was killed, because also him tripping balls in the fairyland was so funny. Funny. John Jarrett and Lindsay talking was hilarious. So
I do love John Jarrett, and I just don't think I like him a whole lot. Like, I like him in film.
Yeah.
I just don't think I like him as a person too much.
Really? Is he a bad?
He's really pro-life.
Oh God.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
I saw a tweet. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I just saw a tweet or something. But I was just like, oh, okay. Uh-huh.
Well, I mean, even if he's... Yeah, that's gross.
But
it does seem like... And I'm not trying to make a sweeping statement about Australians, because that would not... It's obviously, there's a lot of people there. So, but it does seem like, in a way, it can struggle similarly to a lot of American culture, with a huge subsect of people just being wicked racist, wicked misogynistic, wicked homophobic, wicked transphobic. Again, this is not unique to Australia, but it does seem like it is also a problem there.
I used to always think, oh, that's just a difference of opinion. But I don't think that way anymore. I think that if you are pro-life, you hate women.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, changed my mind. I don't get it. And I think if you don't want to have an abortion, don't have one.
Yeah. And if your only comeback really is well, you can, which to me already there's no comeback. Also, if you don't have the possibility to get pregnant, you really cannot understand that feeling of being I am afraid of this happening to me, you can't ever understand, because it's not the same as... It is certainly a different feeling, worried about getting somebody pregnant, but it won't affect your body, your whole life. It won't.
Yeah. And also, you're not in any danger of, for example, dying.
Yeah.
In some cases, I don't know. It's
so
upsetting to me that we're at this place in our country's history, and I just find it so heartbreaking and angering at the same time. So
yeah.
But
oh yeah, but I was gonna say if your big gotcha is like, well, you can adopt the kid out. Do you know anything about, are you for like reforming the foster care system? Have you ever adopted? Have you ever tried to foster a kid? It's like, if you're not doing any of those things, your argument holds no water,
Yeah.
It already didn't before, but it really doesn't.
I was in the foster system for a very, very short period of time, like a month. And even my limited experience, I would never like want that for somebody.
Yeah.
And I know I'm just one person, and I'm sure there are lots of people who have had wonderful experiences.
I think they're the exception.
Fuck right off.
Yeah. So yeah, that is definitely.
I'm really upset today.
Oh.
No.
Well, not really. Look at Hoshi.
Oh, so you got both of them in the same room?
Mm-hmm. She was sitting on the cat condo, sweet. But she's
right here now. Oh, you know what? I think I just ordered that cart you have behind you.
Oh, this one? I like it a lot.
Something very similar. It's going to go in my studio. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't have Letterboxd.
That's okay.
I thought I had done everything, but the show's been long enough, and y'all look up your own Letterboxd reviews. Do your own fucking podcast.
They're like, damn, okay.
Motherfuckers. Okay, no, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
Shh, just look at Hoshi. She's so cute.
Well, thank you for having this conversation with me about The Hills Have Eyes and 100 Bloody Acres, Matt.
Thank you. It was lovely.
And thank you, WoHos, for joining us for this episode and for all your support. It means the world of horror to us, truly. Next time, we're going to be looking at 2 films that can only be described as grim AF. Brazil from the US and UK, and When Evil Lurks from Argentina. Remember, WoHos, we love you, and don't go into the basement.
Yay! We did it!